Oh, JDM goodness. This isn't the number that I ordered. I contacted them on eBay and asked what I could do about it. That's supposed to be my item number. And I took a really long time and went through and looked at every single one of their engines and picked the one that I thought was the best. There's enough wrong with this engine that I'm willing to see what options they'll give me. I don't know if they can do too much about it very soon. I do see that we shipped 3 EZ30s the same day as yours, so maybe there was a mix-up. We do have a few options. Let me know and we can work out an amount. So that is what I was wanting to hear. That's what I was hoping to hear, because really, I would prefer to not have to deal with getting shipped out again. So, it's the next day, and I emailed Dallas JDM Motors, and asked them what the news is. What is that? Oh, sweet. Sorry. Anyway, asked them what news they had on the goings-on. And they got back to me again really quickly within the hour and said, hey, you know, it does look like your engine was delivered already to somebody else. We have a few options, because I told them that I'd like that engine if I could get it. They said, you know, I don't think we can get you that engine, but we could either come pick up the engine that you have and replace it with one that we have in stock that's in better shape, or we could just exchange the bits on your engine with bits that we have in stock that are in good condition, or we can refund $300 to you. So I thought about it for a while, talked to my brothers, and talked to my wife. And basically, I didn't want to get rid of this engine because the long block doesn't matter. It's the stuff that's on it. That $300 is a fair amount to refund, because a new intake manifold would be about $150. A new engine wiring harness would be about $150 or so. But I mean, I have good ones. The only reason I wanted to have another set of good ones is so that when I sell off my old ones, I'd be able to get full price. But if they're already going to give me $300, I could probably still sell off the ones that I have and break even, kind of a thing. And so I don't think I'm going to exchange them. And if I get $300 back, that means that this engine was only $950, which is what the machine shop quoted me for fixing the head. Well, the machine shop quoted about $900. So about $900 or $950. I would call that a good deal all day long. And so $950 for an engine with about 50,000 miles on it. Plus, I'm hoping to be able to sell this short block with the good head. And I could sell the intake manifold, sell some random stuff on it, and make about $750. And then, if I made $750 on all of this, I would only pay $200 for a brand new engine, which I think is a great deal. So, that's what we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and keep working then. Yesterday I got all the bolts out of here. I still need to take off the exhaust manifold from the driver's side head, and I need to unbolt the engine mounts. But I didn't end up going to get my cherry picker last night. I'm gonna go get it tonight, and yeah, then I'll be able to pull this out. But today, before I start working underneath here, I gotta put my jumpsuit on to get underneath it. There's a couple more engine bell housing bolts that I didn't get to because they're up underneath. But I don't really want to suit up totally, and so that's why I'm putting on just lotion. This is a top tip, by the way. If you don't want to wear gloves, even if you're going to wear gloves, put on a ton of lotion. and kind of let it soak in before you start working on your car, because that will fill your hands with a bunch of oil, so that once you start working on your car, there won't be as much oil from the car, motor oil and grease and grime, to get stuck in your hands. You'll be able to use dish soap or whatever hand cleaner you're using, and it'll all come off, and probably most of the lotion you're using will come off, but it makes it so your hands can stay a little nicer. That's a tip from an old hot rodding guy. So grab yourself some lotion. Yeah, so since I don't want to totally suit up, I'm not even going to put gloves on. We're working with a mostly clean engine. It's not greasy, it's just dirty. So I'm going to pull off the wiring harness from that engine and go ahead and slam this one on it. Well, I might wait before I put that one on all the way. Anyway, get it taken apart and get it ready to lift up with my cherry picker, so that as soon as this guy's out, I can slam that one in and be good to go. Okay, so now I have this little borescope. It's a Giraffe Cam brand. I got it for like $16 off of Amazon, and it's been really useful. And so I'm just going to go ahead and shove this in and take a look at what the pistons look like and what the cylinder walls look like. That looks pretty nasty. That one does too. And so does that one. But as I'm just kind of twisting it, I can see kind of the cylinder wall. It looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and check the other side, and I mean, they're dirty, but not so dirty that seafoam won't make a big difference. So that's good. I mean, there's no major cracks or anything in them. I'm just inspecting things to know kind of what I'm dealing with. So looking at the plugs, they don't look too bad. Old, but looks like it's in pretty good condition. That's how about all of them look. I'm just showing you cylinders 2 and 4. Coils also look in good shape. Very good shape. Better shape. Come on. Better shape even than the ones that are in my car on the original engine. So happy with that. I borescoped down and looked at all the valves. They have kind of gunkies in there, but nothing major. Overall, it's looking pretty clean, and I'm happy with it. Okay, so this is exactly why you want to crack all of this stuff and take as much off as you can, because there you go, it just cracked. So these rubber gaskets are really brittle, and as I bend them, you can hear them micro crack, just a little click, 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 click. Yes, the miles on this engine are low, but it still is an old engine, and so you need to replace these really hard, brittle rubber gaskets. So I got the injectors out. The seals seem pretty brittle. They're cracking down right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my old fuel rails, or the fuel rails that were on the car already, because I did replace fuel injector seals when I did head gaskets. So I'm just gonna go ahead and replace this whole unit on both sides and be done with it. And I get to add some injectors and a fuel rail to my parts bin. So here's another thing you should note. Even if the RTV on the outside looks nice and pliable and in good condition, like this one, the inside is super brittle. Okay, so I'm replacing these busted sensors that were on this engine. This one, the whole top end was busted off on this oil pressure sensor. I'm assuming that's what it is. And then here's the other sensor. And so this is actually busted off. So this is how big the sensor is supposed to be. So this whole piece is supposed to come out. You can see that this bottom piece kind of ripped out of it. And so I'm going to replace the whole thing. And then obviously the actual connector was busted off of it too. So I need to pull out this section before I can slide this one in. This one I can just screw in just like that. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out. That one's garbage. This one, make sure it's clean. And just make sure there's a little bit of oil on that O-ring so it'll go in easier. Slide it in. And then to get it over the O-ring, pop. And then it's going to be oriented correctly just by this one stud. So then you go ahead and torque that down. It's only a 10, so I would imagine that's getting torqued to about 5 foot-pounds. So just hand tight. I'm also going to go ahead and pull off the front timing cover because it is just a huge thing of RTV and I don't want it to leak. It is one of the common problems with the EZ30 is that you get leaks down here. And I don't want that to happen. And so while it's out of the car, it's going to be easier to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and replace or reseal it with RTV. This stud right here is stuck on. Everything else is loose and free, but I don't want to pry too hard. I'm going to let this penetrating oil kind of seep into it and see if I can get it to wiggle loose. This one came free real nice, but this stud is being a little more difficult. So take your time. You don't want to break the front cover because it'll crack in half if you're being too harsh on it. So be nice to it, it'll come. If you are having trouble, recheck all your bolts and make sure you got everything out of it. Because that's, I mean, you can break it in half like that too. Alright, so here we are. It's probably been about an hour and a half or so. I got this little, I guess the injection point smoothed out. It does have a little cutout in it, but I'm happy with how it looks. It doesn't have a big knobby sticking out anymore. If there's just that little divot, I'm fine. The rest of it, it's all looking pretty good. I went at it with the 220 on these seams right through here, just to kind of cut them down a little bit, smooth it out slightly. I think I totally went way overkill on this compared to what I was planning on doing. I was just gonna kind of scuff it up and call it good and spray it, but I ended up kind of getting into it. Sanding, as much as it kind of sucks, it's like therapeutic for me, and so good way to start out the morning. Most of all of it is pretty good. I wasn't planning on even doing anything to the bottom of it and not even spraying the bottom, but I went ahead and did the insides and things. I'll go ahead and spray the whole thing. If the bottom doesn't stick as well, no worries. But I'm happy with it. The back side, I guess this side is the side that you're going to see mostly, and I got everything pretty good, and I did a little more work down here sanding on those. You can see if it'll focus for me. Yeah, so they're mostly smooth. You can see a little bits that aren't, but mostly smooth, and so happy with that. There are a couple of spots that are being butts to get into and sand really well, mostly like right there, and the same place on this other side, and then these back little edges like that. But overall, looking pretty good. This was actually wet, and so it is sanded better than it looks. I guess it had oil on it, but this right here isn't. Need to do that really quick, but overall, happy with it. I'm gonna take it inside to the garage that I use to, or to the sink that I use in the mud room here, and just kind of wash it all off, soap and water. I'll go ahead and wash out the inside of it because it's oily. Probably won't be able to see, but it's shiny in there, and so not exactly what you want. It's still got milkshake in there, basically. Nasty stuff in there. And so I was figuring I'd just soak the whole thing, and then I got all my gaskets that I'll wash off nicely, and it'll be good to go. But yeah, my father-in-law came out and was asking why I'm sanding this one down and painting this one if I have another one that's good still. I was having a hard time getting it across that, like, he just didn't like. This is the whole part of modifying cars that people don't understand, and that seems like there's not a huge culture out here in the Midwest of, at least for these cars, because my father-in-law had muscle cars all the time when he was in high school and growing up and stuff, and so that's a different kind of modifying than the stuff that I'm doing. But he had a hard time figuring out well, why, there's one over here on the ground that's good, why are you painting and taking so much time to paint and sand and do everything with this one? I said, well, I'm gonna go a different color. He said, oh, what color? I said, I'm going hot pink. And he just no, don't do that. Tried to explain the whole STI pink thing with him. That didn't work, and so I tried to explain the real reason I'm doing it is because it's his daughter's car and she loves pink, and I did this on her first Subaru and she thought it was awesome, and looking back at pictures of it, it looks really cool to open up the engine bay and have this big pink intake manifold. And mostly, I mean, I'd be willing to paint it any color, lime green or something really cool like that. Pink looks cool to me. But mostly it's just, you know, I like the mechanic aspect of modifying cars and swapping out engines and things. But if it's only that, I feel like I'm not getting enough of what I really like to do in on it. And so spending some time sanding things down and painting things, making them look a little nicer, is, when I have the time, which I do right now, it's a lot more fun for me to do that kind of thing. As well, I mean, in addition to the mechanic side. And so mostly it's just I have a ton of RTV I need to scrape off, and I'm kind of avoiding that. And I figured, hey, I like sanding more than I like scraping RTV, which are both at like the very bottom of anything I ever like to do. But I figured I'd go ahead and sand this one. And so that I can get this painted and cured long enough before I have to put it on. So that it stays nice. Because the paint I'm using is a really nice gloss and it looks really good, and I just want to make it look nice. This is going to be a forever car, at least for right now. The plan is for it to be a forever car, and so I'm taking the extra time, going the extra mile on this engine, where normally I would probably just shove the thing in here and call it good. Change out the valve cover gaskets and be done. But since I have all these new parts, I have a brand new water pump, I have all those brand new O-rings that took me forever to find and then were really expensive. And while it's out here sitting on the pallet, I'm going to go ahead and do it all right. Pull off all of the timing components, reseal the rear timing cover, put those new O-rings in. Because I know that those O-rings in the back are just hard as, they're just little washers sitting in there, and I don't want this engine to leak, and I don't want to ever have to do anything with this engine ever again. And so I'm taking the time to do it right now. It kind of sucks, but it really isn't that much work, especially when I'm scraping off factory RTV. The last time I was scraping off my RTV, which is way more RTV than is actually necessary, and then even the first time I was scraping it off, I was scraping it off from a previous mechanic who used black RTV, and anyway, factory RTV is a whole lot easier to come off, especially when it's so brittle like this RTV is, and that's like the main reason that I'm resealing it, is because that RTV on the inside of everything is really brittle, and I don't want it breaking off and going into my oil. And I also don't want it leaking. So I don't know really how necessary this is, but if I was buying like a EJ25 engine, I would be doing head gaskets on it. And so, I mean, anytime you buy an engine, you want to make it as good as you can, unless you're in a big rush. And I'm not in a big rush, and I'm really trying to stay out of the rush mindset, because that's how I end up doing things that I'm not happy with, and where I have to go back in and reseal the engine 3 or 4 times and miss a cracked head. I'm really trying to do this right this first time, which is really like the 8th time or whatever. But I figure it's a brand, well, 50,000 miles on the engine, but it's from like an '05, and so it's a 12-year-old engine.